What's up gamers, Dreamcastguy here, talking today about the PlayStation 5, but very specifically, I want to talk about backwards compatibility, because this seems to be a topic that's causing a lot of unrest. A lot of people seem to be conflicted as to if this will actually be a good thing and what form it'll actually take. Now, first and foremost, I actually want to say thank you everybody for being patient this week. We've been having some power problems here in Texas, and I was actually sitting in the dark for the last 24 hours, but my power is back. Electricity exists. I have a computer and a spotlight and a microphone. So thank you everybody for being patient. Give this video a like if you haven't already and subscribe and all that. But now let's talk about the real interesting stuff, which is that there's been an increasing frequency of leaks all about the idea of backwards compatibility when it comes to the PlayStation 5. Now, on the record, Sony has been talking a lot about the power, the raw energy that'll be inside the PS5, the fact that it'll have a solid-state hard drive and haptic feedback controllers, and some interesting stuff that I think has gotten some attention. But I've also seen a bunch of people talking off the record or leaking details about the fact that apparently the PlayStation 5 is supposed to be the ultimate all-in-one gaming device. Let me just give you a random example. There's this Twitter account that randomly tweets out some insider information from Sony, and they've done things like they actually completely confirmed the release date for The Last of Us Part 2 way before it was public knowledge. And randomly, it started saying, don't sell your old PlayStation games. Keep all your discs for the Ps1, Ps2, Ps3, and Ps4. Now, most of us weren't selling them anyways. Obviously, I'm a huge physical collector, and So people started trying to connect the dots. People started saying, what's this mean? Because there has actually been several rumors already that Sony is internally trying to find a way to make the PlayStation 5 really, really universal. Something that could actually play their entire back catalog. And people seem to be excited, but also skeptical. People actually are saying, will it be possible to play all these old games on such a new device? In order to properly analyze this, we first need to essentially analyze the competition. Xbox, Microsoft, and the reason why is because this entire console generation, Microsoft has really been trying to, well, carve out their own little niche, which is the back catalog. Now, I actually have some examples of this. There is a ton of stuff that you can put directly into an Xbox and play it. Anything that was done by Microsoft, you can put their actual physical disc into your Xbox One. It will install a version that'll run on that console and you can play it. Some of them even actually have upgrades or little small visual tweaks like making it 4K. This actually works with some older stuff as well. Like, there are so many great old games that are sort of forgotten about or overlooked, like Simpsons Road Rage. So I think a lot of people are wondering, how does that actually work? How is it that Microsoft is able to take these games that existed a long time ago and put them on current tech? It actually comes down to the publisher. Basically, Microsoft ends up approaching a company and saying, hey, I want to put your stuff on my system. It existed on this older hardware. We want it to come back. And they usually organize some sort of deal to allow it. I think that this is definitely the same route that's going to be taking place when it comes to the PlayStation 5. There is one really key difference, though, that I think is actually important to talk about, which is the fact that Microsoft has a big first-party catalog. Microsoft, while they don't do a bunch of games now, in the past they've done stuff like Fusion Frenzy and, of course, Gears of War. So when they created their own backwards compatibility program, they could take this huge, already established group of things and bring it over. Sony, on the other hand, has always done things a little bit of a different path, which is that they make great consoles, but they kind of expect their third-party developers to do the heavy lifting. The best games are actually things that were made by other people. Like, I decided to literally just grab some random stuff off my shelf. Like, think about things like Suikoden. This is seriously one of the absolute best, totally forgotten things. It was actually made by Konami. It's like a super big RPG that's so good. There's a couple sequels too. The earlier ones are better. What about things like Wild Arms? There's a bunch of Wild Arms games. These are so freaking good. And this is one that is made by Sony, so maybe that would come back. But what about weird stuff? Like, imagine if you'll be able to actually take a PlayStation 2 game, pop the disc out, and put it directly into your PlayStation 5. Now, what'll probably happen is these discs can't be read. They can't actually put all these consoles in one. The way that the PlayStation 2 worked, because that was one of the first systems to have backwards compatibility, is there was the actual hardware of a PlayStation 1 inside of your PlayStation 2. That's why when you were playing a PS2, sometimes if you had an older system, part of it could break. So like if you actually had a super old PlayStation 2, sometimes it would only play PS1 games or it would only play PS2 games. So more realistically, what's probably going to happen is inside of the PlayStation 5, there will just be a thing that's able to check what specific game it is. And then it will install an emulated version of it. It'll take like the complete data of the thing and then basically install like a backwards compatible version copy of it on the PlayStation 5. To me, though, even that is a massively awesome deal. I think that this could be a very, very big triumph. Now, something that I know a lot of people are talking about is, will anybody actually care? This is something I definitely see a lot of Xbox people saying is, Xbox has had backwards compatibility for like 5 years now, and everybody kind of ignores it. Most of the Sony fanboys say like, whatever man, it's not a big deal. But I actually think that the catalogs of PlayStation and the catalogs of Microsoft are very, very different. I mean, you can act like this is a one-to-one comparison, but it's not. The PlayStation, especially when you look into its past, it has a huge set of amazing games. Okay, I'm seriously, this center row here is all my Dreamcast and PlayStation stuff. Without looking, I'm literally going to close my eyes and I'm going to grab a random PlayStation game, and I bet it's going to be amazing. What do we got here? The original Medal of Honor. This is a World War II first-person shooter that actually had stealth missions and some of the first free aiming where you could actually hold a trigger and aim at people. That's fantastic. And this is my point, is this stuff is so good. If you brought this forward right freaking now and put it on the PlayStation 5, people would buy it. Now, the reason I actually think that Sony is going to invest all this stuff is not just because of them wanting higher hardware sales. I actually think that Sony seems to be trying to expand their online marketplace. They're actually talking more about making a bigger push for PS Now, or talking about maybe doing something where their digital storefront has more backwards compatibility stuff. Like, imagine if you could buy PS1 games on your PlayStation 5. So the developers who made those games long ago will get current money for this. Now, you may be sitting there going, Dreamcastguy, so this sounds possible, but why is it real? What is the actual evidence? So, two things. One, I talked to my own people about this. I actually floated it around, and several people have said, yes, there is definitely backwards compatibility in some format. There is something in this. Realistically, it's going to be 90% PS4, but there is apparently going to possibly be stuff from different systems. But realistically, almost nothing from the PlayStation 3. The way that PS3 worked, it had asymmetrical architecture. So basically, the games had to be made in a very, very peculiar fashion that doesn't make them super compatible with any other piece of tech, which is kind of unfortunate. That's why when you do see PlayStation 3 games that came to PS4, most of them had to be total remakes, like what we saw with the Uncharted collection or The Last of Us Remastered. But I actually found another quote. So, a lot of gaming journalists who work at the major gaming websites, they get a bunch of very deep insider knowledge, and sometimes, if you're very, very lucky, they'll let things slip. This is a Vice journalist by the name of Patrick Klepek. This guy is normally pretty good. He doesn't leak stuff very often, but when he does, it's 100% accurate. So here's his quote. Let me read it real quick, and it goes like this. Everything I've heard about the PS5, this is going back a full 2 years now, has been a huge emphasis on history, that it's going to be sort of about this thing of not just the future, but also about the past. That means your ability to play lots of those games. Now, this dude is an extremely rock-solid source, and if he is actually hearing tons of rumblings about the past coming to the future, that to me is so freaking good. At this point, it's pretty much confirmed that we're going to get some sort of backwards compatibility, even if it is just the same way that it worked on the PlayStation 3, where you would actually have to rebuy stuff piece by piece. This, to me, is a very big deal. Who knows how much of this will actually be good for physical console owners and people who own a bunch of the discs like I do, but even if I actually have to repurchase stuff bit by bit, I actually consider this to be a huge success. I'm glad that these game companies realize that there are people out there who want to enjoy the past. People who are excited for the Final Fantasy VII Remake, but still want to be able to play a copy of the original Final Fantasy VII. What do you think about it though? What are some of the backwards compatible games that you actually want to see the most? Is it things like Xenogears or the really bad port of Chrono Trigger on PS1? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. I pulled out way too many games to film this video. I gotta go resort my room. But you guys rock. I love you. Thank you so much. This has been a fun week. Hey, if you are going to Retropalooza in Arlington, Texas, follow me on Twitter. I'm gonna be at Retropalooza, and I want to be able to like tweet out my location and meet up with you guys and hang out and everything. Okay, bye. Mwah, mwah. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.